Welcome to DevOps Accents, a podcast on everything around DevOps, public cloud, and cloud-native topics, with your hosts, Pablo, Leo, and Kirill.
Okay, hi everybody who listens to us. Thank you for tuning in. Today we are back in full force again. Hi guys.
Hello, how are you?
Hello.
Kirill, how are you feeling?
Significantly better, Leo. Healthy.
At least you're alive.
Okay, so without going down to the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories, how many times have you had COVID?
At least two, no?
That was the second one. Yes. But both were... First one was before vaccination. Second one was after vaccination. This time I did not lose my smell for 3
Yeah,
months.
but there was another one in the middle that you thought that you had, no? Something I remember.
No, my wife had, but I did not get infected from her.
Yes, maybe it was this one.
And this time was vice versa. She did not get infected from me.
Funny way
Because
how
Roy
it
had
works.
2 times.
Pablo, what's your score?
My score is 1, as far as I remember. It was 1, only 1. Yes.
Yeah, that's because you live on an island.
No.
where no one else lives.
Everyone is infected in whatever case. But if I remember, it was only 1. Okay, and beginning maybe another 1, but there were no tests, something like that. So maybe 2. But okay, with test confirmed, only 1.
Okay, fine. Anyway, I'm glad you are here and we are here and healthy. Those who are listening to us, stay safe, guys, and stay healthy. So I was going to do a short intro about recent updates on MKDev, but then I thought that the best way to get these updates from us and about what's new is to be subscribed to our regular MKDev Dispatch newsletter. There we publish the most interesting and noteworthy videos, articles, and include it with our own thoughts on top of that. So you better go now and subscribe. And if you haven't signed up yet, this is the best time to do so because Kirill touched a very interesting topic in one of the previous issues. If you weren't subscribed to the newsletter by then, you can go and check this newsletter in archive. And I'd like to start with the introduction that Kirill gave to this newsletter. So you, Kirill, wrote about how in the IT environment, we do not exactly follow scientific principles. When a new fundamental discovery is made in science, it often overrides or better say renders previous views obsolete, but that doesn't necessarily happen in IT area. When some fundamental new technology emerges, many still use the old one for one reason or another, from personal beliefs or budget constraints. But can you guys give me examples from your personal experience where using an older technology was not only not recommended, but maybe even wrong or even destructive for the company? Like in scientific way, if we stick to the idea that Earth is flat and we try to launch a rocket, there will be a disaster. Yes. So what kind of disaster can happen if I try to use an older technology in IT world?
I think one of the most common examples is security updates. That's like one of these places where it's clearly extremely beneficial to use something newer or just a new version. And last year or 2 years ago, we had this Log4j issue. So Log4j is the library to collect logs from Java applications. And there was this vulnerability in Log4j that basically allowed you to execute code remotely. I know in this case, it's obvious that if you don't upgrade the new version, then you'll be in a big trouble. So there is no controversy whether you should use something new or not. And same goes for quite often operating systems. like the newer version of operating system on the server most often is the like commonly accepted as the good way forward, even though not always, because for example with Red Hat people always complain that Red Hat in the new merge version releases something that is wrong. The previous version was better.
But this does not really happen to the technologies that build on top of each other, like when we have a version number 1 and in a few years later we have a version number 4, and but someone still uses version number 1 and they can make it work. It works slower, worse, but it still works, right? And is there some dangers other than security issues in doing so?
I think dangerous, no. I think in this case it's like upgrading from an older car to a newer car. Yes, the old car, and you see like there are these people who drive the same car for like 50 years and still works for sure. There is no issue doing this. But the newer car will be faster, more environment friendly, with more features.
Or upgrading a computer?
Or yeah.
But we need to think something. Banks are working with mainframes since 60 years, 70, 80, and they never update the mainframes. So there is no update for the mainframes. And everything is working. So that we need to think in, that not everything is working in this way. So we have now a kind of technology that needs to be updated. And as Kirill was telling, but there is another technology that cannot be updated. And for example, the other day I was watching a video blog about the new electric cars and these updates that you have in the electric cars and all these kind of things. And one person was telling something super interesting because now they want to stop to use the non-electric cars in 2035 in Europe. So the idea was that when the cars appear, nobody killed the horses. And when the electricity appeared, nobody destroy all the candles. So what I mean is that many times the old technology is very good and is working much, much better than the new technology. So this is something that needs to be considered too many times.
I've been reading this and looking at the issue from like a business standpoint, and the main idea behind that to me was because I felt like Kirill is trying to preach me, and that yeah, I'm not a judge, but it feels more like from a corporate standpoint, like there is a particular reason why you as a user should switch to a newer version and pay me more rather than sticking to an older version that you purchased 10 years ago, because this older version does not work anymore and it works not as great as a new version. So spend more money on me now and you will be safer and disaster won't happen to you. And then I realized that Apple is doing something similar to that. They just not allow you to use older operational systems, older iPhones, when a new operational system arrives on the market. You just simply can't upgrade your iPhone to it because it's too old, even though it is capable to run it physically. But there are some features that are not supported. Okay, they are not supported, but just disable them on my older phone. But they don't do this. They still don't allow you to install application, and they don't allow you to install newer operational systems on your older Apple MacBooks and other Apple devices. So this happens a lot, and but it happens for different reasons. Is it so?
I think Apple is a good example because, okay, first of all, I think they're actually way better than, like, let's say, Android in terms of supporting, because I have iPhone 6s and that was released 8 years ago, 9 years ago. And I think up to 2022, 2021, I could upgrade to the latest operating system. And Apple has this very strict time frame, like till when they support certain hardware. So yes, like they support, let's say, the last 6-7 years of hardware, and then it kind of always shifts. So they say, okay, if it's older than 6 years, that makes no sense to maintain it anymore. Like just upgrade to whatever like later version of the hardware. And that's also what like I think you don't have in software. There is no such strict requirement to upgrade, because there is of course no central entity like Apple to force you to upgrade if you're having the Apple device.
But there we're missing a number of things, because in this case, for example, Apple is having every one of the version of the operating system in a different, let's say, branch, in the different element, and then everyone is having different updates. So in case that you want to update the version 6, you need to have a team that is working the version 6, version 7, version 8, version 9, 10, 11. So different teams for every one of the version, because maybe you change a lot in the code. So the code is not the same in the version 6 and the version 7, or the version 6 and 11. You need many people doing those upgrades. This is the case number one, because you say at one point, okay, I cannot spend more money in the version 6, so that's all. But then you say, okay, I want to jump to the version 8. But then there is another problem, that is the hardware, because this is a company that is selling the two components. So it's not like, for example, LG. LG is selling to you laptops, but it's only laptops. They are not selling to you operating system. There is no LG operating system. So then they have the second component, that is the hardware, and says, okay, I made a hardware with this isolence. I know how to say that Greek word in Spanish, isolescencia. So isolescence, and it's going to die in 3 years, 4 years, 2 years. Minimum 2, because there is an European law at least to say minimum is 2 years. And then I have this hardware that is going to die, but it's not dead. It's still working. For whatever reason, this device is living for 10 years, because maybe the person is using with a lot of care and is working. So now I don't want you to use that cell phone anymore. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to force you to stick to an operating system version that I'm not going to upgrade. So now you are not able to install application, for example, like WhatsApp, because WhatsApp is one of the keys, because most of the people has these old cell phones. And this is the reason, because you do that and then you force people to buy more cell phones. But as you were telling, Leo, this old cell phone is working.
Yes.
And it's working fine. My daughter, she has an iPad from, 11 years, more or less, because I bought that in Chicago. Even I had no kids at this time. So it's 11 years, more or less. And it's working.
I have iPad 2. No, wrong. Not iPad 2. iPad 4. iPad 4. And it works, and it works fine. I can use it for drawing and for most cases. But what happened is that a lot of websites switched to some new, I don't know, JavaScript technologies, some JavaScript versions or whatnot, or newer image formats like WebP or something like that, and instead of PNG or similar. And a lot of websites don't work correctly when I try to open it from my browser on the older iPad. And this makes me wonder, like, it works perfectly on desktop, and there's nothing difficult to render. It's just text and images, but at the same time, the browser on the older iPad just can't handle it, and at some point, it is nearly impossible to surf on the internet using this iPad anymore without deactivating JavaScript at all. So once you deactivate JavaScript, and the websites that don't use it for core functionality, it opens just fine, perfectly. It loads all the text, all the images, and you can scroll it, you can navigate it, and everything was fine. Once you activate JavaScript, everything stops working. And this is a fun observation because something has changed in the other place that made my device obsolete. So what I mean is that technology evolves despite the decisions of the platform owners, but Is that happens often on software development? Because you said that in cloud infrastructure area, there are no like a big guy who will enforce new rules on everybody else. But do smaller companies can do something like this? For example, I don't know, like if you take Podman, and it always works with other technologies, right? And can they tell that we are only work with you, and we can and you can install our newer version of, for example, Podman on your machine only if you use this and that technology of the most recent version? Is it possible?
Oh, this is how it works already now. So Podman has some requirements for the operating system. Like you cannot use Podman on macOS, for example. You need some Linux VM to use it there. So for any utility, there are some requirements that you need to fulfill to be able to use it. And once there is a new version, they normally change. Like, okay, now we require a different major version of some other system component, and without this new version, it just won't work. So it's a constant process of tools being updated and dependencies being updated, and then you are forced to also move forward or to be stuck with the older version.
So probably
Plus, there's also in terms of cloud providers, it's it's with open source software, you can just decide I'll stick to previous version. But if you use cloud infrastructure or cloud like managed services, sometimes you don't have any choice. And one example, we've been using this tool called Octobot, and that's automation for invoices. So basically, it integrates with our payment systems and it generates compliant invoices. And Octobot was acquired by another company in France, and they just shut down the service. So for us, there is no other options than to rewrite our code to generate invoices in a different way. Even though in this case there is no upgrade, there is no new version, it's just commercial decision to shut down software as a service that forces us to re-engineer our own software because we relied on this cloud offering. And I consider this also cloud because there is a blurred line between what's cloud and what's software as a service. Because in the end, you can call like github.com, for example, can also be considered a cloud and not just the software as a service tool.
At the end, you're a company and you take a decision. So this is the market that they have. And this is the expenses that is taken to fulfill the requirement of this little other part of the market. So for example, then is worth it for me or no? If this is a lot of money for you, you say, as Kirill is telling, sorry, bye-bye, so see you next time. So now it's only here and here and here. And everything depends, again, if you're selling software or you're selling hardware or you're selling both at the same time, because depends on your needs. So because if you're only selling software and your application is not consuming a lot of resources, for you it's not a problem to tell use a minimum machine. But if you're selling software and hardware, you need to sell both things. And if your hardware never dies, and it's like, imagine a car, 20 years, 30 years. So, but what do you do to sell a new car? You are adding new functionalities and you're telling that your car is contaminating and you're telling that your car is not okay, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
But you can go to countries like Cuba or Venezuela, where you can see 30, 40 years old cars. All the cars are like that. And all of them are running. So, day by day and nothing happens. So it's okay. And imagine now with these new electric cars that are a software update, they're going to have a software. Okay, they are going, no, they're having software updates. Imagine that you can say that. You can say after 5 years,
Yes.
Your Tesla 3 is all because now we're in Tesla 5. Sorry, but you cannot. But I spent 150,000 in this car. Man, so what can we do? Life is hard, but okay, it's how it is. But it's only 5 years old car. Yes, but the battery is very bad. The lithium, maybe it can explode. It's better for you that you change the car. So you can do everything because at the end, the economy is something that is moving when you generate money. And to generate money, you need people to spend money. So it's a step by step by step by step by step. So at the end, it's how it's working.
Do you think this happens because the software developers and hardware developers feel some kind of responsibility for their technology. So what you mentioned, Pablo, for example, Tesla creates their cars, and they know that after several years of constant exploitation of lithium battery, it may become dangerous to continue operating with that. It will explode, or something bad will happen if you continue using it at some point. And it's and they by doing that, by restricting you from continue using your car for 10 years, they are trying to prevent some disasters that might happen to you, because what they sell to you is a very complicated hardware and very complicated software. And it's much more complicated than an older car on Cuba that you can fill with gas and just run for 50 years. Do you think they do this for a reason?
Money. So there is only one reason: it's money. So because if imagine, I remember always when I was a kid, my mother, at home, he had a washing machine, and this washing machine was in our family for, I don't remember, 30 years. Because at this time, nobody thought, okay, I'm going to create something that after 3 years, everything is going to be destroyed and it's not going to work anymore. Nobody was so let's say bad or good thinking about money. So and unless in my country, because it wasn't like a country inside this economical revolution that you need to spend and spend and spend and spend and spend. So but now everything dies because money. Now we cannot use giants of explosion anymore because we need to use electric cars because of money. Everything that is going to happen, or at least most of the things that are going to happen to you in the next year are related. If are related to companies, are related to money. Always. There is no other reason.
So it's not like they are caring about our well-being and they care about we didn't break something with an older software or an older hardware. No, they only care about money.
Even now the Dalai Lama is a pedophile, so he wants to get kids. So we are living in a world where everything is money in this point. Don't think that. Maybe there are a number of people, organizations that they care about the wealth of the humanity, for sure. But a company care about money. It's a company.
Okay, another example then. In the same issue of MKDev Dispatch, we shared a video, your video, Kirill, about how you discovered the worst possible way to run containers on AWS. And can we say that this is a part of the same problem? Like AWS App Runner appeared something like 2 years ago, and since then there have been better ways to run containers, and including, as I understand it, from AWS itself, but this solution continues to exist. Do they still keep app runner in existence because of the same problem, because they need money from it, or there is another reason? So what's the catch here?
The cloud tech industry is evolving so fast. Do you keep up with it by improving your skills or upskilling your team? At MKDev, we offer a variety of workshops for just that, from the basics to expert knowledge. Before delivering our workshops and training sessions, we carry out a detailed assessment of each participant. To make sure the workshop is helpful for you and your team, we will add more content to it or throw out what you already know. Or we create a custom workshop specifically for the needs of your team and the specifics of your project.
AWS is a good example of how, for sure, you think about money, but the good thing about AWS is that in all of this, 14, 15 years of existence, AWS deprecated only 1 or 2 services. And even they don't even deprecate features that often. So if you look at AWS S3, the story thing, almost all the features that exist, that were there 10 years, 15 years ago, they're still there. So they famously try never to deprecate anything, which is good because you don't want to be like with Google that just takes something from you randomly. Like they announce, oh yeah, like from Monday this service doesn't exist, or you have to redo everything from Monday. No, AWS is really good with this because they understand that if someone in 2010 invested into AWS infrastructure, they probably don't want to rewrite everything, and there's a business running on this infrastructure, so they keep everything there. But at the same time, they need to improve, right? So they need to release new services, they need to offer something better. That's how they ended up with this 17 ways to run containers. Because at first, the story with containers in AWS was like this. I think 8-9 years ago, the Docker appeared, and containers exploded in popularity, and AWS was like, okay, now we see that everyone wants to package applications as containers. They don't like our machine images. We need to release a container service. So they released AWS Elastic Container Service, or ECS. And some people liked it, some not, because it was, as first version, it didn't work that great. And then some months later, Kubernetes appears. And everyone is like, okay, now there's this great open source tool, Kubernetes, that you can use on every infrastructure. You can run on your own machines. You can run on any cloud. And what can AWS do at this point? So everyone wants to use Kubernetes. So they release the EKS, Elastic Kubernetes Service. So now they have ECS and EKS, two different ways to run containers that they need to maintain. At the same time, I think 1 year before Docker, they released AWS Lambda, completely different way to run applications. There is a serverless model. So now you have like this, and eventually they add container support for Lambda just for packaging. So now you have 3 ways to run applications, and go figure what's the proper one. And of course, because it's AWS, every service in AWS, you cannot just use the service itself. It always comes with another 20 services. So if you use ECS or EKS, you have like EC2, S3, IAM, whatever, all these foundational AWS services. And it's also for good reasons, because they have foundation and they build all the new services on top of this. But then I think they saw that Google takes a bit of a different approach, because Google does not try to release. And it's crazy with Amazon because they have this yearly event reInvent, where they release lots of new services. But if you look at the log, they also release something new for many of their services every single day. So imagine you have 300 services, and then every day some new features come for many of those services. Plus, once per year, you get 20 new services. And Google takes a different approach. They just say, we will focus on Kubernetes and some other ways to run applications. And Google had the service Cloud Run that we use for Claymore, that you can just say, here's my application, I want to run it. And then it just runs the application over some endpoint. And Amazon does not have anything like this. Even at some point, Amazon created something called Lightsail, which is not AWS, but it's also a way where you can run. It's like a virtual server provider, like DigitalOcean. So simplified, like AWS Lite. So with 2-3 features, and now it also grew to like 10 services, and you can also run containers there. So Google had this very simple way to run containers with Cloud Run, which AWS did not have, because with AWS you need to bind together 20 different services to get to the same point. And I think that's why they decided, okay, people don't really want to just use Lambda for this and to learn ECS. Let's make a new service. And they created AppRunner, which is yet another way to run containers that now, well, you cannot say that ECS or Lambda or EKS are gone, because there are like $1 billion businesses running on these services. You cannot just deprecate them. So now I have AppRunner, which is a new service. But because it was version 1 2 years ago, you need to kind of slowly build the features so that it's even comparable with ECS. So what's going to happen in 3-4 years, AppRunner will be of comparable feature set as ECS, and then go figure what's the good way to run it. And they also have small differences in how they operate.
To me, this sounds like they tried to do something good, and they had like very good intentions, but in the end, everything goes nuts.
AWS is also infamous for trying to make sense out of these Lego blocks that they have. So at first they had something called Elastic Beanstalk, and that was, and I actually had a video about this, making a product series about all the ways Amazon tries to offer you an easy an easy path to deploy applications. So first it was Beanstalk, which basically was abstraction on top of 3-4 other services, and then it kind of makes things simpler. But in the end, it's just another interface, so it's not a real service. And then lots of companies used it, but it was not good enough. They just stopped developing it. Well, they still released something, but not too many features. And then they released, I think it's called CodeStar, which was also an easy way to run applications. And again, it was this binding of many other services. So they always try to find a way, because they have an issue. They have hundreds of services. And many startups, they don't want to learn hundreds of services. They want to just run the application. So AWS always tries to simplify this, either by using offering some open source tools or some duct taping, or releasing completely new services like AppRunner. Because they see that, okay, they need to appeal for these smaller companies. Imagine you want to run Claymore or Transcripto. You have the Rails application and you want to just run it. You don't want to run like VPC, IAM, S3, and all of the services, especially learn how to use it properly. You would just go to Heroku or like Fly.io to do this.
To me, this sounds like AWS is trying to duct tape on the existing duct tape instead of just creating something. You voiced the demand from the startup community and from the developers. Yes, you already said that we don't want to learn 100 applications. We just give us the one that rules them all and make us happy. But instead of answering to that demand, they are giving you more and more duct tapes.
For me, this is the crazy part, because and that's also one of the reasons I wrote this intro, because of the possibility of progress. Because if you look at what we had, I think like more than 10 years ago, we already had Heroku. And Heroku was this platform as a service where you have the application code, and as a developer, you just say like git push to your main line, and you have your application up and running. That's everything you need to do. Okay, you also need to run another command to add the database, and that's it. You never think about load balancer, you never think about any complex workflows. Like you have the code and you just push it, and then you have it running. I remember, I think I showed it to Pablo 2 years ago, and he was pretty surprised about this capability of Heroku. And we had this technology that made things super simple to run applications more than 10 years ago. And somehow
We moved Claymore to Heroku at the beginning.
Yes, Claymore was running Heroku at the start. I think we moved it to Google Run because it was like a good showcase application for Google Run and to try things out. But if we would not be a DevOps and cloud native consulting, and we would be just building Claymore, we would just probably run it on Heroku or on Fly.io. I think Fly.io is now this hipster Heroku alternative. So it's crazy if you think about it, that 10 years ago we had the simplest workflow you can imagine to get the application up and running. And not like Heroku was only good for pet projects. You had like huge companies running it. It's expensive for sure. It's like, let's say 3, 4, 5 times expensive than AWS, because also I think it initially run on top of AWS. So they need to find this margin somehow. And now I feel like since Heroku, over all of these years, we are trying to get back to the point that it's as easy to deploy applications as it was a decade ago. And that's also where all of this like platform engineering comes, and like that now we need to have like a platform team that takes different cloud technologies, takes Kubernetes, and builds something for developers that is super easy to deploy, even though we already kind of figured out all of this long time ago.
But I think this is a very good point here, because these Lego themes that you were telling is not only happening in AWS, it's happening in Azure, it's happening in Google, it's happening in every cloud environment, because at the end, all of them, they try to mirror with the other. So if you want to have, for example, Kubernetes, you want to have Kubernetes, you have Kubernetes in AWS, you have Kubernetes in Oracle Cloud, you have Kubernetes in Azure, you have Kubernetes in whatever cloud, in everyone. But one is telling, okay, I'm going to create, imagine Lambda. Okay, I'm going to do Lambda, I'm going to do Cloud Function, I'm going to do... Everyone is replicating what the other is doing. And all these blocks, what they are doing is that every time that you try to do something, every time it's more and more complex. Because every time there are more and more and more and more options, and you can enter, for example, Cloud Run. I remember Cloud Run at the beginning. It was 2 tabs, 3 tabs, and it was super simple. It was, I have an image, I deploy the image, I have a little amount of memory, CPU, and that's all. And now they try, because it's to this policy of a company, is that if there is nothing new, the people think that is all. And we are living in this world where everything that sounds all sounds bad. So if you're all, you're dead. So you need to have something like is fresh. This idea of fresh. Because if you don't change the web page, you're dead. If you don't change the logo, you're dead. So because of this idea, if you see, for example, the changes that companies like AWS and Google Cloud create every month, it's crazy. So it's not possible to. I remember, 5 years ago in Germany, in this AWS summit, that every month there was a summit, and the guys was spending only 30 minutes telling the news about what was new in AWS, and only that. So, and maybe 60% of these new feature nobody's going to use, but you need to create these kind of themes because you need to prove to the world, okay, I am doing that and that and that. And now the problem is that when you try to do something simple, many times it's super complex. So because you have such amount of options to decide that you say, but come on, I only want to create a load balancer. So it's simple. A load balancer, this front end, back end, that's all. Okay. Even I don't want to have any kind of SSL to simplify everything. No. You need to choose 2,000 options. And I think that they need to stop one day and rethink and says, okay, we need to create something simple because not every customer, they want to have something complex. And these kind of things make me think that maybe they want to make things complex to have another thing on top that is the support. Because if I made the theme simple, one click button, you don't need support because there is only one button. If you click, it's working. If you click, it's not working. So I don't need a second company support. I don't need something else like that. And they make a lot of money with the support too, and they make a lot of money with the problems that they generate, and they make a lot of money with these teams because this is crazy because it's like you have at home a plumber, and they go to your house and they fix all the pipes in your house, and then it's failing because he made something super complex diagram. And they go to your house and say, okay, but you need to pay for that service. But man, you made that. You need to fix that. No, sorry. Then I got to sell you a service of 30K per year or per month, and then you pay that, and then I will go to your house. And this is,
and 3 more plumbers will come to your house
yes,
to maintain the pipes.
And this is what happened with the cloud, that they create something that at some point is super complex, and then you need to even to utilize, and you need to work with this team. And even then they want you to hire an external company that they recommended you. Yes, because I'm going to tell you which one is a good company who is going to do the themes, company which one I have an agreement, and then this company is going to come to your house to fix the problem that I generated. So it's a very good business.
In some cases, this new services make sense, right? Because I think there are two sources for how they come up with services. One is that they actually have some like internal visionaries who came up with like AWS Lambda, because I cannot imagine an external demand for something like AWS Lambda. But in other cases, they have customers who just say, well, we actually need something like a private network link between our on-premise data center and AWS VPC. So AWS has to invent the service because they want to have all of these customers with data centers slowly migrating. Or let's take example with that you've been struggling with recently, Pablo, is that you have a use case that you want to allow your customers to set different custom domain names. for your application. So you don't want to use Claymore.com, you want to use like mybusiness.com to go to Claymore. And now Claymore.com runs on Cloud Run, and suddenly you figure that actually Cloud Run does not have a native support for dynamic custom domains. So then at some point Google has to add this feature, right? And that's how they probably add lots of features. They just see that they cannot fulfill the need of the customer, and then they need to release something. Because what do you do if you never release this feature and you have a business like, okay, Claymore is not a huge business, but imagine Claymore about multi-million-dollar business. They will just say, well, we just migrate to Cloudflare if you don't release this feature. And then we will use Cloudflare because Cloudflare has this custom domains and certificates done extremely easy and affordable. So they need to accommodate all this. Not only even customers, they also need to accommodate all the open source technologies. Because if you look also at Amazon, again, you have like all these different databases. So they want you to use DynamoDB, but they know that people love Postgres. So they have to also offer a way to run Postgres on AWS. And they have to offer a way to run MongoDB. That's how you end up with all of the services from this external tooling perspective. Just because people want to use particular tools, then the cloud needs to provide because it's a provider.
But okay, I have a question, and I know you guys can answer it. So the question is to you two as cloud experts. Would you rather? Let's play Would You Rather here. For example, on one hand, you can have a solution, one for all solution that will satisfy the business owners because they need to hire less engineers and they need to spend less money. And if something new arrives on this platform, on this solution, the company that created it, they disable the previous solution and they force all their customers to migrate to a newer solutions. And from a customer standpoint, I need to have only one or two experts that will help me migrating to that newer solution, and that's it. On the other hand, we have all this, I don't know, over 9,000 tools and application that you currently use, but you can create more custom solutions to that and you can be more flexible with them, but obviously it will be more difficult and will create more headache for you and for business owners and for everybody else. So which one would you choose over another? And from your point of view as an expert?
You can.
I think it's like, it's always, it depends.
Okay, I know that you can understand the problem from both standpoints, from the standpoint of a business owner and from the standpoint of an expert that does everyday work. So try to forget about business standpoint. From an expert standpoint, which one would be the best?
I think my preference always is to use simplest solution possible. So I'd rather, like with Kubernetes, this amazing system that allows you to do 900 things. I'd rather not use it if I can avoid using it. I'd rather use something way simpler to run applications, for example.
Okay, Pablo, what about you?
Yeah, okay. Everything depends of the case, no? But okay, I prefer to use something simple for sure, rather than to use something like it's able to do 2,000 things, because at the end you only need to have something simple. But many times when you think, okay, who is going to use this case? Who wants to use this scenario? And at the end, always there is a case of a company, of a person who needs to have this scenario. In my case, is if you only need to do something like a simple thing, use something simple. If you want to use something complex, then maybe you need to think. But many times the problem is that and we talk about that in one of the episodes of this podcast. Many times it's not because the decisions of what technology do you use in a company many times is not decided by the person who needs to choose that, because he has no knowledge about that, and is decided by the people who use the technology. So many times the technology is introduced in the company because the people who use this technology introduce the technology.
And that's the part of the problem. If there are no a lot of technologies, and you have like you can choose between AWS all-in-one solution or Google Cloud Platform all-in-one solution, and you only have two technologies. So there will be no guy introduced that will introduce a new technology to your company. So
No, but
you only
what
can
I mean is,
choose
it was
two.
that when the people, for example, start to introduce little themes in the not something so big like AWS or Google Cloud, little technologies in the middle of the product, whatever little thing, and he start to introduce something else and something else, and little bubbles at the end, you can create a monster. And to control this monster, because you have many themes, what you need is you need to have something on top that is able to control this monster. So, and in this case of these scenarios, you say, okay, I have no other option than to do what I want to do. So no, I need to use something complex. But when you're in a green field and you are able to control end-to-end everything that is happening, and you don't allow people to introduce those, it's super cool thing, you don't allow them to do that, then it's better, because you end in a simple product, and then you can use a simple solution to do that. That even simple means cheaper, and cheaper means that you get more money for you.
So there is no middle ground.
Okay, you can have every option at the end. It depends of the, every case is different.
I think a slightly different topic is that when we talk about, and I've been thinking about it a lot, that now that we talk about selecting technologies in terms of cloud, we select between different cloud offerings. And I remember like 6, 7, 8 years ago, when I personally was doing way more automation of more like regular infrastructure, the choice was not about technology. That did not mean a paid offering from some other company. It actually meant selecting, for example, open source utilities. And the choice was not about whether AWS supports this feature or not. It was, okay, we need to do centralized log processing, for example. And you could actually compare between many, many different options based on their performance, like how much, how many things you can configure in them. So it was felt more like an engineering choice, because you could compare different options, and even you could add features yourself. And now choosing technology is basically, yes, well, it's if Amazon supports this, we will use it. If they don't support this, that's it. Like, we probably have to build something of our own. So we switched from a bit more, let's say, proper science-based selection of technologies to something more of a duct taping in the end of many, many cloud services. And then the cloud services actually decide the actual progress in these technologies, and not anyone else, except open source utilities that are still there, of course.
I think the part of the problem comes from the fact that a lot of companies are trying to create custom solutions for themselves when they, because of different reasons, right? Because I don't know, they have security issues, and they don't want to share their data with other providers or something like that. So they build some custom solution for them, and then after several years, they release this custom solution to the market as a tool, and someone else is starting to use their solution and adopts to their business, to their infrastructure. And the more and more such solutions appears on the market that were customly created for some specific job, but then a new business appears, and now they have to pick between hundreds and thousands different solutions that were created for some specific needs, and they need to try to adopt anything of it. I think this creates the problem of a lot of tools and a lot of technologies that exist on the market. A lot of them were created for something specific, and now a lot of people are trying to apply them and use them as a universal solution. And while it's not, So instead of trying to adopt a lot of different solutions, we should try to stick to more robust and more universal solution that exist there, and then try to add something on top of that. Maybe that's the problem.
The problem is that there are surprisingly not that many universal solutions to choose from. So one of the things that, yes, so for example, we have all of this networking stack pretty well standardized and documented with how DNS works, with how HTTP works, all these protocols. That's standard universal solution that you can just use. But once you go few layers above this, like with application runtimes, okay, luckily, again, like I keep telling this, that we have now containers as a standard to package things, as to run things. But for instance, we don't have a standard how to run them at scale. Let's say, so we have many different options. We have Kubernetes, we have different as open source solutions, we have cloud services. And here, like, go figure which of them to consider a universal way to run applications and which not. And same for databases, for example. We have like lots of different relational and NoSQL databases to choose from. And none of them can be considered universal solution because also data is something very use case specific.
Yeah, it doesn't make our lives any easier. Okay, guys, I think we spent enough time talking about variety of cloud solutions so far. I want to thank you.
And we didn't talk about
for-
GPT.
Yeah, that's an achievement. We will reserve this for another time. Thank you for that. And I want to thank everybody who joined us today, who tuned in. And I want to thank you guys for spending your time with me today. And I wish everyone a great day. And thank you for joining me. Bye.
See you.
Do you think your project infrastructure is well set and maintained? We know for sure there is always room for improvement. If you are uncertain where to begin, let's first do an audit of what you already have. We will review your setup from every angle: performance, cost, security, high availability, and automation, and provide you with a detailed roadmap of which direction your infrastructure should go, generate concrete tasks for you to implement, or even take on your infra entirely, if you let us, of course.